ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's executive. As I always say, if you're asking a question this evening, you can either ask the question standing in your name or read the whole question, whichever you prefer, whichever is easiest. Pauline Jorgensen isn't with us this evening, so Pauline Jorgensen tonight will be looking like Anthony Pollock, and he will be dealing with any questions that are coming to Pauline's way. So, without further ado, any apologies for absence? Only Pauline. Okay, minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of February, anything that we've missed or any omissions or anything that needs to be corrected? Everybody happy? So I'll get a show of hands. Great, thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? Very well so far. Okay, public question time, so... Oh, anything on for the shareholders report, Anthony, do you need to?
Oh, then yes, the usual. The usual, that I'm a director of Optus Holdings.
Right, then, anybody else is on? No, thank you. And, okay, on to questions. So, Adrian Mather, if you'd like to come up and ask your question.
Thank you. So, the new Southern Distributor Road will exit, I believe, at Tesco's roundabout and on the Finchampstead Road. The Finchampstead Road is already one of the most congested roads in Woking, which is regularly gridlocked. The new road will likely be used by large commercial vehicles, which will also increase the environmental impact and also increase the congestion. How many vehicles does Woking Borough Council estimate will be added to this gridlock road at peak time?
Okay. Thank you for your question. I have to accept that I'm busking it a little bit tonight. Looking at the answer here, I don't have a number for you, but I'm well aware, having been Director Member for Highways twice in my history, I do understand what you're talking about and understand the issues you're talking about. So let me read this the answer, and then I might ad-lib a bit as well. You are correct that the Southern Distributor Road will connect into the highway network at the roundabout adjacent to Tesco. The road will provide a route from the London Road west of Copper Beach roundabout over the new railway bridge through to the A321 Finchampstead Road. The Southern Distributor Road is not intended to replace the A329 London Road through the town, but instead would supplement it, providing users with greater choice, while also providing resilience to our network. Council is currently working on a road signing strategy for all new roads, and therefore no decision has yet been made on routing of HGVs. However, the road will be designated to a standard that will be able to cater for them. The road is a piece of infrastructure identified to mitigate growth and development alongside many other major pieces of infrastructure currently being progressed by the Council. The road and any housing applications associated with the South Woking area will be submitted for planning permission along with a range of supporting documents that will cover environmental and transport matters, all of which will be publicly available on the Council's planning portal when received. The transport work is still being progressed by the major projects team and by developer consultants associated with the housing elements, and therefore until this is completed it will not be possible to provide an estimate of traffic flows at this stage, as even the simplest of junction designs can encourage or discourage traffic movements. The full planning submission needs to be assessed as a complete package of findings and any recommendations made by officers will be set out in detail to members of the planning committee prior to any permission being granted. I think I would add, I think also there are other roads to the other side of the railway line which traffic could divert instead of coming up to this junction. They could divert earlier onto some of the other roads that exist and then pick up to the Southern Distributor Road and access the London Road through the development in order to bypass the town. But certainly it was intended to provide a bypass for the town. I think we are well aware of the congestion aspects with the two railway bridges. I think there have been discussions as to how we might mitigate some of that, but no further conclusions have been arrived at. But I'm sure that we will keep it under consideration, simply because we do understand, many councillors here are resident of Woking or working without, and therefore congestion issues affect us all, concern us all, concern all sorts of residents, as well. So we will be trying our best to mitigate as much congestion as we can.
Okay, do you have a supplementary question?
I'd like to just embellish a little bit on the question, really. So, in relation to the commercial vehicles, I think the road works will require either digging down under the bridges or something like this to increase the capacity so that the large vehicles can go actually under the railways. Do you know how long these works will take? Because I presume this will close these bridges.
I'm aware of the principles which you're talking about, and given the issues around congestion in Peak Street over the last couple of years, when I held the highways portfolio recently, I was very concerned about the impact on the southern bridge onto the Finchampstead Road and the consequences of congestion of that area. So, do I have an answer to your question? No, not specifically, but again, I do understand the concerns that you are raising and have expressed them to officers with aid. Can we find other solutions? I think the northern bridge is okay. In the southern bridge there are issues. Again, it depends on the size and the height of the vehicles. But if people are accessing Molly Millers, I think currently they want to go over the level crossings rather than into the bridges. But I think some of the lorries have got special height-reducing tyres or something, I think, which do enable them to get under the bridges. But there's a whole suspension. There's a whole load of issues that we are aware of, and it's quite complicated and complex. But watch this space.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you. Stephen Kipps? Okay, we'll give that a written answer. Paul Fishwick?
Thank you very much. Good evening. My question is to the Executive Member for Highways and Transport, deputised by Anthony tonight. The section of King Street Lane in Woolwich between Sainsbury's and Ornate Avenue has been flooded on at least 22 occasions between the 26th of March 2018 and the 6th of March 2019, approximately 11 months, and on many occasions during dry weather conditions. This flooding causes surface water to flow into adjacent properties. Gardens and pedestrians and cyclists find it difficult to travel on the highway without wading through water. The flooding events normally last about 20 to 30 minutes, and then the water quickly drains away via gullies and the surface water sewer system. The council are aware of this flooding issue and appear to have done nothing about it. What action is the council taking to stop these regular flooding events? Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question from Alnut Avenue. Can you just explain exactly where that is?
Yes, I can. If you look at Sainsbury's Crossroads and you start to go down King Street Lane,
Yeah.
the first turning on the left is Inlet Avenue. That's the area which floods from Sainsbury's delivery yard, okay, down to Ornate Avenue. It's that area that floods.
All right, okay, thank you. Officers were made aware of this issue last year and took immediate action to check and clear, if necessary, the highways drainage system and connecting gullies to ensure that the system is not blocked. No fault or problems were identified with our system, and the source of the problem could not be identified. Following these investigations, officers have been made aware of further incidents of flooding in the highway and verge area, even during dry conditions. The drainage team are currently in talks with third-party landowners to see if the cause can be identified and will report back to residents as soon as possible. Do you have any idea as to the source of this flooding? It would be useful for us to know.
I certainly have some ideas. My background, or my hobby is meteorology, climatology. I have a weather station and I have rainfall records during the whole of this period, which is actually to Met Office and Environmental Standard, so I can produce all that information. My supplementary question, if I may, is will the executive member agree to an on-site meeting with myself and local residents so we can go through the issues when they occurred and what the potential source of this third-party water is?
I'm actually the executive member. You've addressed it
For environment.
I'd like to, yes.
But it is a flavour of the highway.
You'll probably get 2 for the price of 1.
Excellent. Isn't that like the Tesco advert?
Hopefully better quality. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. And Keith Melvin, come and ask your question.
Good evening. I have a question which is addressed to the executive member for environment, leisure and everything else, libraries. It goes like this. I was very impressed to read the report on page 27 of the latest Wokingham Borough News, Visual A, about the sheer variety of what libraries are doing. In quotes it says, libraries are changing because what you want from us is changing. Okay. Many people would be surprised and disappointed to read elsewhere that it is proposed to move the Wokingham Library from its current purpose-built location to a new home. What improved facilities will be provided to justify this move?
I've only, is that one of them? No. I've only been in post since November.
You and I both.
The relocation of the Wokingham Library to the new site was agreed in 2017. In our view, that it is clear that it's in its current location, Wokingham Library has been successful and continues to provide a range of well-used services and activities for all people of all ages. However, the current library site does have its challenges, and there are areas where the improvements could be made. The key limitation of the current site is the 2-storey layout and the location of the library meeting rooms. This necessitates additional staffing and reduces options for utilising the library space in different ways. The floor area available on the new library site represents a similar amount of available space that is more accessible and provides greater flexibility in terms of use. Having the library on one floor will also benefit the staffing and operation of the facility with a clearer line of sight across all the activities taking place. The current library site is somewhat isolated from the rest of the town centre and has limited ability to align itself directly with other activities or to utilise any extra space for larger events. Within the new site, high levels of footfall are expected along the main pedestrian route, giving the library an increased presence in the heart of the development. It will also increase the opportunity for linked trips, with visitors to the leisure centre also combining this with a visit to the library. The proximity to substantial amounts of public park close by the library and the proximity to public transport will also improve access for visitors.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do, but where to start with that? I'm grateful for the words that you said, and obviously we give you notice of these questions, so you've got time to investigate. But what I would say is that amongst the things that you've listed, none of those seem to actually talk about offering facilities, more facilities, in the other than, I hesitate to use the word convenience of the staff.
So Keith, as you
Can
well,
I ask-
as you well know, there should be a question, not a statement.
Sorry, you just interrupted me when I said, can I ask? That usually means a question is coming.
Not necessarily with you, but yeah, okay. No, please do.
I understand you welcome questions from members of the public. Are
We
you
do.
demonstrating that?
Well, I'm trying to.
You're trying, that's certainly true. Can I ask if there are, if you can easily identify the benefits of the scheme, that you will put this scheme to a form of public consultation so that existing users can at least be made aware of what you're proposing and you can at least get their views as to whether what you're proposing will improve circumstances for them?
Mr. Nolan, before we actually set up on this course, we conducted a number of public consultations about the principle of relocating the libraries and the specific proposals for Wokingham Library. The responses were positive and helped to justify the recommendation to relocate the working library?
Clearly, I don't agree with that answer. There's one was a very general type consultation, which unfortunately I can't quite remember the name of it. And the other was in line with the regeneration scheme. And if we want regeneration to work, you've got to work with the people of Wokingham, and I would suggest it would be in everybody's interest that you make a proper consultation now, so that you actually have got a strong basis on which to make any proposal. You have nothing for for members of the public from what you say, which is very disappointing.
Thank you, Keith, for your question.
Something to think about.
Gary, would you like to go and ask your question?
Thank you. I'd like to ask the question standing on the name.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for your question. Simply put, the number of new homes we are expected to accommodate has changed because the government has introduced new laws, and they keep changing. I'm not happy about that, and I know you're not. The core strategy housing requirement, you're quite right, was 662 per year, dates from the South East Plan of 2009, which you also will know an awful lot about, which was revoked by the government in 2013. Through the introduction of the first National Planning Policy Framework, NPPF, in 2012, a new approach to calculating housing need was introduced. This was changed again with the government publishing a revised National Planning Policy Framework in 2018, with further amendments already in 2019. As you know, we are making our feelings felt about all these changes and the things that we come across. The government currently requires housing need to be calculated through a standard method. It uses the national household projection for each local authority and applies an affordability adjustment based on median house prices and earnings. For Wokingham Borough, the housing need through this approach calculates as 864 dwellings per annum. This, however, needs to be recalculated each year, so the figure will change. Again, we pointed this out to IMPs, we're not happy about this either. We are required by government policy to use a standard method both as the starting point for progressing our local plan update and for calculating our deliverable housing land supply. This is not a matter of choice at the moment. I'm sure you agree that the constant changes to government policy and guidance are not helping anyone in preparing any plans. I'm sure you will also agree that the government's driving of the planning system to increase housing requirements without regard to where the homes should be and should not be directed across the country is completely unsatisfactory and undermines efforts to plan properly for the long term. Again, we're taking this up very strongly with our government, although they are busy on something else at the moment. Notwithstanding the difficulties, we continue to progress our local plan work following the clear process and requirements set out in legislation and government policy. This is the best way we can defend residents against unsustainable and unplanned developments that will harm our borough.
Should we have a supplementary, Gary?
Yes. Picking on that, the objectively assessed need housing number does throw up some issues of concern. The memorandum of understanding signed by the 4 councils in the Western housing market area states that between them all, including Wokingham, they would meet this OAN, which is about 3,300 a year. Reading in the Housing Local Plan Examination Public, which is going on now, said they are 1,000 houses short, and they quote the memorandum of understanding as the solution which the inspector appears to be comfortable with. So they're looking for someone to put in 1,000 houses. My question therefore is, does our OAN take into consideration this shortfall in Reading, which occurs later in the plan period, or will it be dealt with by the Graiseley Gardens settlement document approved by the Conservative Group on the 13th of October 2016, which shows the Graiseley Master Plan and our local plan to be adopted in November of this year. But as our local plan has been rolled back to 2021, I assume the Graiseley Master Plan will also be. So its housing trajectory on page 23 shows 1,750 houses to be built by 2020 to 2025. Will that now be 2022 to 27 and carrying on at 450 a year forevermore after that? Would this not be a better solution to help Reading out?
I don't think, like, nobody's saying that we aren't going to help her. They've told us that they don't ask us to help them because they know what the answer is, and the answer is no.
If you read your previous executive members who signed the memorandum, he said nothing of the sort. Westmark said no, we said we'll try and help you.
Should make absolutely
Mark
clear.
Ashwell said it.
Yeah, Gareth, as you know, because you've been on this council longer than I have, things change. And I think you left the council chamber last Thursday before I made my speech. But what I said was, and I stand by this wholeheartedly, that we are building too many. Even if we continue with building what we've already approved, which is the 8,000, and we know we've got another 2,000 coming, we've got more than an 11-year land supply. So what we're saying to the government is we do our bit, but we're not going to do more than our bit. So we're not going to do more than Reading, we're not going to do more than Bracknell. We want to do our bit. We're certainly not taking any houses from any other local authority.
Why did we take £750,000 from the government?
Okay,
to
well,
stop
okay, I'll just come to
operating?
that. Okay, I'll just come to that. So we made a statement to the government, and so far the response has been quite positive. We said that if we have to do any further development, and it is a big if, then we would want it to be a standalone development where we can put the infrastructure in first and then build the houses, because that's what gets residents frustrated, that we build the houses, then we put the roads in. You should put the roads in first, get the infrastructure
I'm not
right.
sure about that.
Okay, no, so this is the condition that we've made to the government. They've come back to us and say, right, okay, work up, us and 5 or 6 other local authorities, work up a feasibility study to see whether it's viable. We're not too sure if it's viable or not, but we've got officers working on that. That is what that money is for. Now, if the government wants us to work that up and pay for it, we're happy to do it, but it makes no compulsion on us to actually build those houses or go ahead with it. I made it very clear that this authority is changing the way it looks at housing. We're going to build less houses than we have built. We'll still maintain our 5-year land supply, and then we'll continue to fight with the government, and we've got our local MPs to support. And after the election, we will be going back to every resident in this borough to say, do you agree with this or not? And if you agree with it, and hopefully we'll get 40, 50, 60,000 people giving us their thoughts. If they agree with what we're doing, that gives us a very big, powerful message to give back to government to say, enough is enough.
I think you live in a dream world. Thank you.
Well,
Cuckoo land might be a better term.
watch
Thank
this
you very
space.
much. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Philip Holdsworth is not here, so we'll give him a written answer. So if we now move on to the matters for consideration. The shareholders report on 15 and 16. I just need to note that Stuart, Philip and I are non-executive members, albeit non-remunerated, but we are non-executive members, so we do need to declare an interest in that, if that's okay. Anthony, do you want to take the shareholders report?
Yes, fine, thank you. As you can see, the shareholder report is laid out before you, and I think there is, I think the only thing that we were looking to change was that Oxford would report into holding company, which it hasn't done since the inauguration with Remain. So that's the only major change. But otherwise, things are progressing. There are also, I think, a few changes in some slimming down of some of the board structures on the housing companies as well to make it more efficient. But otherwise, it is as you see before you.
Okay. Great. I think actually bringing the Optilis on to reporting to the holding company actually strengthens the governance and actually sort of gives greater oversight. So I think that's the right thing to do. Any questions for Anthony? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Everyone in agreement? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Agenda item 111, John, cemetery regulations.
Really, there's not very much to say on this other than it's tidying up sort of stuff that we've already got going and the stuff which needs to be updated. There's really no mind-blowing stuff which needs to be directed to, and so I just recommend it to first acceptance.
Okay, any tricky questions for John? No. Okay, so if we go straight to the vote, everyone happy to accept the recommendation? Thank you very much. That's all agreed. Unanimous. So it's going well. So procurement business case for home to school transport. So Anthony, can you sort of cover that for Pauline? Is that all right?
Right, thank you. It's as you see it. I think the main issue linked into this is it relates to mainly standard secondary schools, and I think I'm right in saying that it also includes additional provisions so that those parents choosing to go to a school that isn't necessarily their designated catchment school, which particularly affects people like me and Stuart in the West, where we may be wanting to go to schools in Grosvenor, that people can actually buy relatively inexpensive travel for their children. It gives them a school choice, and giving people school choice, I think, is something that people will support. So, and this is effectively a statutory provision which is contained primarily in the 1944 Education Act, which hasn't been changed. In those days, people did actually walk long distances, but these days they don't seem to walk so much. But anyway, we have to make this provision, and contracts need to be reviewed. So, to the executive.
Okay, Pauline, Executive for Children.
Anthony said almost word for word exactly what I was going to say, so no point repeating it.
You trained him well. Okay, any questions for Anthony? Okay, go straight to the vote. Everyone happy? Unanimous? Thank you very much. And agenda item 113, recommissioning the Integrated Sexual and Reproductive Health Service. Harry.
Thank you, Chair. It's important to emphasise that good sexual and reproductive health and well-being is an important contributor to our overall well-being. So it is central to the development of some of the most important relationships in our lives. The current contract for commissioning the Integrated Sexual and Reproductive Health Service runs out in April next year. Therefore, this report primarily asks us to give the go-ahead for the Director of Corporate Services to go out to tender to competitively procure that service for the next batch of years. And that's simply put, is asking us to approve it. And there's a couple of recommendations there to agree. So I say let's agree with the recommendations.
Okay, there is some information on the pink pages which hopefully we don't need to go into, we won't need to sort of go to part two. Any questions for Harry, any clarifications? Everyone happy to accept the recommendation as it's in the agenda and supports? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That's the end of tonight's executive. Thank you.